The next step in the fret leveling process is to polish the frets, and we're going to polish those out to a mirror shine. So the first thing that we'll do to prepare for that is we'll protect the fretboard. And for that, I'm going to use the new MusicNomad fret guard. This is a stainless shield that goes on directly on the fretboard and exposes all the frets but protects the wood itself. Now, the reason for using this is that whenever you're polishing the frets, you might need to get down on the sides and you might accidentally rub the fretboard with the fret polisher, and that can mar the fretboard. It's much more critical on finished glossy maple fretboards or like a Rickenbacker that has a finished fretboard. If you have a rosewood board or an ebony board, not quite as critical because the bare wood is a little bit more forgiving, but protecting the wood is a good move. If you don't have the fret guard, which I think is well worth purchasing, it just makes it so much easier, you can use masking tape, like a low tack masking tape, and tape in between each fret. But just be aware that some finished boards, particularly 90s era, 80s and 90s era fenders, they have adhesion issues on some of them. You should be able to see it. Often they're flaking on the edges, but if you put tape directly on that finish, you might, when you pull off the tape, you might pull pieces of finish up with it. So just be super cautious and either de-tack your tape on your shirt or your pants, or get really low tack tape, or just get the fret guard. So now I'm going to go ahead and affix the fret shield on the neck to protect the fretboard while I'm polishing the frets. So now I have the fret shield on and I'm ready to polish the frets. And I don't want to overstate this, but it is a critical part of the process to polish your frets out correctly and to as close to mirror shine as you can get, which should be very easy to do with our polishing system. But that does a couple of things. One is it will enable really nice and smooth bending. When your frets are mirror polished, the bending is very, very smooth. And also having them completely polished out will enable you to identify any wear points as you move forward, because it'll be really obvious. If you start getting some little divots or whatever on the frets, or you get a little ding, you'll be able to see it because your frets aren't all scratched up or gunky. So it's just a really nice finish to have on the frets, and also just when you finish, you just look at them and think, wow, those look amazing. So that's really satisfying. So to do the fret polishing, I'm going to use the MusicNomad Tracer Fret Eraser system. This is really a cool tool. It's a very well thought out, uses micro mesh loops on a handle that is spring loaded. So it's really ergonomically designed. It has a radius edge that is tapered to almost a point, so you can get really close down onto the fret sides without hitting the fretboard. It's double-sided, so you can utilize both sides of the micro mesh without having to rotate it. But whenever you do, this is the cool part of it, once you have polished out 2 or 4 frets, however much you get out of each strip of micro mesh, you just loosen the handle and you can rotate the micro mesh around and keep exposing a fresh part of the micro mesh cloth. And we include 4 grits of micro mesh that are the grits that we would commonly use to take frets from a filed state all the way up to a mirror polish. So they're numbered 1 through 4, super easy. Just do number 1 all the way up, number 2, 3, 4, and you're good to go. So I'm going to get started on that at the first fret. So now that you've crowned your frets, this is going to be a breeze. It's exactly the same motion, exactly the same technique. You're just going to put the channel of the tracer right on the fret top, and then you're just going to go back and forth with this until you've polished out those crowning marks. So I'm going to do exactly the same thing as I did when I was crowning. I'm going to go back and forth across the fret until I've taken out my S-file cutting marks. Just like that. And even with the number 1 grit, that fret's already looking pretty good. So now I'll flip it around, and I can use the back half of the same piece of micro mesh for my second fret. Looks good. Now I can just flip it over to the fresh strip on the other side. So one thing about using the micro mesh for polishing is you do not have to use a lot of pressure. If you use a lot of pressure on the micro mesh, the fabric, the abrasive can come off, but that just shows that you're just pushing too hard. You don't need pressure for it to work. You just keep a light touch on it, move it back and forth, and it's going to hold up and be really durable. But if you push really, really hard, it gets hot, and that's kind of a problem for the abrasive. And this process is going to be about like crowning. It's probably going to take 20 minutes or so to get all of the frets polished all the way out. So not a terribly long and laborious process, but it is going to take a little bit of time. Saw a little bit on the side there that I missed on my last fret, but it's not a problem to get in there and catch that. Now I've gotten through the first grit, and so now I'm going to pop this off of my handle and go in with number 2. But it's amazing, actually, just going to the second grit, how much shinier these frets are. It's pretty remarkable just from that first polish to the second. Most folks would be satisfied with the polish off number 2, but not us. We're going to number 4. Yeah, it's one of the advantages of using the fret shield is that you can really lay into the corner of those frets without worrying at all about the fretboard. With tape, you're going to burn through the tape, and certainly if you don't do anything to protect the board, then you're just going to scuff it. But yeah, with the fret shield, you can pretty much go at it as much as you want, and it's not going to damage the guitar at all. So I'm really able to get right down in that corner with the tracer because of the shield. And that fret's looking really good all the way down. Flip this thing around just to get access to those upper frets a little better. Switch is a little bit in the way, just like it was in the crowning. I can move my micro mesh down to the end so I can get right off the edge of the fret there. Okay, on to number 3. I'm just going to leave the guitar in this orientation. No need to turn it back around. Oh yeah, that's really starting to pop now. And the progressive grits go faster. There's not the first one takes the longest. And once you get up in the higher grits, the final polishes really just don't take very long. So don't get discouraged on that grit number 1. You'll make it. All right, number 4, last step. It's already looking really beautiful, but this will put that little final polish. Now the frets are polished out. looking beautiful. I can go ahead and take off my fret shield. Get your brush off any fret stuff that's still on there. Have a good look at what we've done. Gleaming and glorious.
That's Music Nomad quality, bringing fret care to the next level.